I'm Michael Bastine, and I'm part of the Algonquin people, and we come from Maniwaki, Quebec, and I've followed the traditions or the teachings of the traditional ways of Native people for about 40 years. I was in my early 20s when I started being exposed to that.
What is a message you would like to give to whoever will be elected this year and helping for Native people to help Native people or about the Dakota Access Pipeline? What is something you would like to tell, a message you would like to relate to whoever gets elected this year so that they don't come down too hard on Native people, especially the ones who are protesting in the Dakota Access Pipeline?
Well, as far as giving an opinion of treating Native Americans or Native issues better than they have in the past, we kind of have to look at what is it that will benefit, if anything, by honoring those Native teachings or the Native treaties or the rights. And the rights really aren't any special than any other rights for any other human. So the thing that gets looked at, though, is if those rights get honored or granted, is it interfering with the profiteering of other agencies or other companies? And that seems to dictate how the enforcement or the recognition of Native rights. And that's the part I think needs to be clarified, is that Native rights don't give any special entitlements to how to live this life. Some people might disagree and say, well, they're, in some element, tax exemption does give preferential treatment. And, well, if that's true, then why don't they relook at the system and say, then stop heavily taxing the rest of the population? And if you're going to continue to do that, they need to really bring out, what is this funding? What is it all being used for? Is it just the working class supporting a small segment of the elite? But I think that the Native rights issue always gets buried or pushed aside or ignored. And even if it gets ignored, people will ask, well, why is it that they can get away with it? Why can they continue not to hear the grievances of the Native people? And it's been an ongoing since the onset of this government establishing itself as the dominant power in the world. Well, idealistically, my hopes would be that whoever gets elected doesn't follow the path of the past. You have candidates that want to say words like, let's do what's right. That has no political connotation in any means. And doing what's right is recognition of the treatment over the history of the Native people. Does respect for each other have a statute of time limit on it? Does it run out after 100 or 200 or 300 years? I don't think so. And why isn't that they can't run a platform and start to show and tell the people it's time for this government and it's time for politics to start doing the right thing and not being what their version or definition of politically correct or whatever they want to infuse, and do the right thing. And so the treatment, idealistically, is honor your agreements, honor what they entered into initially. If you want to call them treaties, then honor the treaties or honor the agreements that are still valid and should be recognized.
How do you think whoever gets elected this year for president should handle terrorism acts that are being committed by people doing it in the name of ISIS?
Well, they isolate, or they seem to pick out certain factions of a group of people and then say this is one of the sources of terrorism. And, terrorism is terrorism. It doesn't matter what culture or what group of people are using behavior, but then trying to hide behind certain other elements that say this is our right to practice what we believe. But, a right to practice should not include the harming of the environment, the harming of animals, or the harming of other human beings or other life forms around them. So as long as that distortion gets accepted and they allow groups to practice behaviors that shouldn't be practiced, this is the part that I think gets overlooked, and it gets clouded by the politics. It gets clouded by religion. It gets clouded by the issues that easily distract people, and then no one is able to come to a clear or recognize how to approach that. And it needs to be approached, I think, primarily through the group of people who are experiencing the problems. You can't get another outside group to try to address that if the group itself won't help police itself and monitor itself. So those are parts, I think, that need to be brought out and have that discussion to say, what are you going to do to help us help you rid this problem from the world?